Vassar. In Richmond in those days, you were kind of went to Sweet Brine, was sent to Sweet Brine. You were shipped to Vassar. It was almost as if your reputation was so terrible you had to get out of town, not come back.
I remember my parents gave me a year's allowance. They gave me, I think it was $125, and then we had the get-together, I believe, that October with Yale, and I needed a dress. So I went to Jane Hayes, and I blew the entire 125 on a beautiful dress.
People got fairly dressed up when we were there, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
On the weekend, you know, you put on, you look pretty good.
With your hat and your gloves.
People did dress up.
You remember being blinded by stones in main dining room?
Oh, yes.
About the last 2 months of school?
Yes.
I mean, that was remarkable.
Of course, I started smoking immediately. Got on the train from New York to go to Poughkeepsie and bought my first package of cigarettes.
I bought a bicycle, which had fat tires. I think I was the only fat tired person there. A gooseneck lamp, and what I referred to as a Roman coach. And everyone said to me, "What'd you buy?" And I said, "I bought this kind of funny looking thing, looks like a Roman coach." And half the people just gave me a very strange look. And it turned out later that they told me they had no clue what I was saying. They thought I said coach instead of couch. Well, I didn't say couch. And then Gail Nyberg told me later that I was very cheery and introduced myself, and I said, hi, I'm Weezie. And she said it was 2 years before she knew my name. She thought Weezie was the name.
Oh, that's funny.
She never really got it. Yeah. So I think there was a slight bit of a language barrier.
I always remember looking around and seeing people wearing Ike bracelets. I think that our whole approach to politics was rather trivial.
I learned how to ride a bike at Vassar. I remember I told the admissions person, I yesed her. She said to me, oh, when you ride a bike, you can ride all over the campus. And I didn't say, no, I don't know how to ride. I just yesed her. And so the first week I was up at Vassar, I took it as my commitment was to learn how to ride a bike, but I loved riding my bike.
I remember riding my bike a lot around the campus and loving that.
I also remember biking after studying at night. We used to go to the Drug. They had the best grilled cheeseburgers, but they were square, you know, and I can still taste them. And the Vassar Devil.
Yeah.
I remember ordering from the Drug, pulling the all-nighters, particularly for Art 105.
Remember we used to have to do work detail?
Yes.
Wear hair nuts and scrape dishes and
That's right.
And the slop.
So we took turns and going into the kitchen, and people would bring their trays and their dishes, and we'd have to take that white rubber-tipped spatula thing and scrape the food off.
Just think of the choice that students demand. You know, every type of cuisine they have to offer now. We got mystery meat and a couple of vegetables and an apple or 3 slices of canned
and you got to
peaches.
scrape it all off the table, off the plates into the garbage.
Well, I guess, you know, kids won't do those jobs anymore.
Well, the food wasn't very good. Remember that horrible thing we used to have something called Scotch woodcock? Oh. And it looked like 2 bosoms sitting on the toast. And it was like 2 hard-boiled eggs on a piece of toast sitting up like, with, you know, rarebit sauce on top. Yuck.
When I went to Vassar, I came from a kosher home. My mother kept a kosher home. And when I got to Vassar, there was no such thing as they have today, a vegetarian kitchen or a kosher kitchen. And you either ate what they gave you or you didn't eat. And I remember the chipped beef on toast. Do you remember the chipped beef on toast?
Horrible stuff.
White smush over bread. And that's when I stopped being kosher.
I would spend almost all my money eating out. I remember the Vassar Devil. That was quite a wonderful thing for me to have. And as a matter of fact, I gained a lot of weight at Vassar. That was part of my problem.
Another one I didn't like was Pigs in a Blanket.
Oh, yeah. That was awful. I used to go to spend some time with Bill Cards.
Oh, really?
I used to have 10-cent beer.
Tremendously good classes that I had. I was in a house singing group. We had a wonderful time singing at different places. Liz Berlin, Irving Berlin's daughter was in the group. She arranged White Christmas for us.
Oh, how nice.
That was pretty exciting.
I remember loving the campus. I loved the library. I loved sitting under the oak tree and reading in front of the library.
Wasn't it fun? We were all so laid back, and I loved the women. To me, it was a privilege to have had my education in living with so many interesting women. There were many lectures at Vassar that were just wonderful. I did go to a lot of lectures.
Remember we used to study art history with black and white slides?
Yes, yes.
I remember we could even bring a hairdryer when I was in Jeanne.
Vassar was considerably thought to be a suitcase school. We all bailed out on weekends and went to the men's colleges.
At Vassar, the first couple of years that I was there, I did spend a lot of time going on dates and going weekends to Yale, Princeton, Williams, whatever. And it was funny, but as time went on, my attitudes changed, and I did far less of that, and I stayed more on campus.
I really didn't go on a lot of college weekends. The college weekends I went on, I didn't think were so hotsy-totsy. You know, a lot of people drinking too much, and I was not enthralled.
Remember when people would yell down the hall, the blind date?
Yes.
If anybody want a date, I was always up there. And everybody yelled back, how tall is he? So funny.
Wednesday night was the
over the hill club.
Yeah, right.
I really wanted to go to Vassar, but I'm very glad I did. My only situation there was I started when I was 16. In New York at that time, they had something called Rapid Advance, Special Progress. And I think it's a terrible, terrible mistake to rush people in those years. Maybe their minds are good enough, but I think socially I was totally out of it. But I was a young 16. Yeah.
I felt very young when I went to Vassar. I felt very immature. I felt very much a loner, even though I also had some good friends from time to time.
The only thing that I found a little rugged about Vassar College was the weather. It was so cold. I took badminton, bowling, anything that did not involve going outside. It was cold.
One of my fondest memories of Vassar was when Sue Feidelson and I decided that we were going to bike from the campus to New York to visit our families. And we got on our bikes and off we went. We got as far as the thruway and the cars were whooshing by us and she chickened out. And we called the car service. Remember the car service came with those black limos, and he came and got us, and he put our bikes in his car, and we returned to campus.
What was it like to major in math?
It was very, very challenging. The comprehensives at the end were the furthest thing from fun.
I was on a Vassar trip, and I ran into a professor who asked me, said, did you ever run into any prejudice at Vassar? Then I realized later that he meant being a Southerner. And the only time I ever ran into it was my freshman year. Kind of a blousy redhead lady who leaned on the desk and looked formidable and said something to me, and I said, yes, ma'am, and she lit into me. Vassar girls don't say yes, ma'am. Later, I was so terrified that I was going to come up with some euphemism that when I had to go to the quote ladies' room, I said I needed to go to the toilet, where she told me I was vulgar.
Loved being in Soph and junior party. That was great fun.
I remember wonderful times working on soft party and junior party.
Remember the White Angels?
I was not the best student in our class.
You weren't?
No, but I had an awfully good time.
You know, one of the great joys of going to Vassar is this beautiful community.
I was very much struck by the beauty of the campus. But I felt strange. I felt as though I'd been sent to Mars.
Did you ever go on a mixer? I think I must have gone on more mixers, and the first mixer I went to was Yale. And I got off the bus wearing the famous honey-colored $1 million tweed dress and some red velvet capezios, flat as pancakes. And this guy who's my sign today comes up. And I think, Jeanne, I think the guy might have come up to my shoulder. Maybe a little more. So we're going to make the best of this. Right? So we go off to this football game, and the guy he had on a knitted sweater. I swear to God, it had a whole herd of reindeer traipsing across. I was so mortified. But, you know, I'm afraid I was going to run into somebody I know. I didn't know anybody anyway. That's why I was there. So I go to the thing, and we were making this conversation, and there we are at the football game. People were running up and down. I said to this little fellow, I said, and what do you play? Thinking soccer or something. He said, the violin. Oh, okay. And then it turned out that he was a Ford Scholar, and he was 16 years old.
Oh no, Mary Letourneau of 1956.
So actually, the truth of the matter is we had a very nice time. You know, it all worked out. We had a fun time. people accommodated. You know, people weren't mean. He was nice. I was nice. And we just sat making. When I heard he was like a 16-year-old violin player from Wisconsin.
That's funny.
It's so funny.
I know something that's probably too obscene for the video. Do you remember that we had taught Isla? We used to call it. Remember what we used to call Jergens lotion?
Certainly, jerk off.
Lotion. And Isla didn't know it was that dirty. And one time when we were all in students watching some show or something, getting ready to watch a show, she was in the front row and we were sitting 5 or 6 rows back, and she said something loudly. She said, "Oh, my hands are so dry, Kathy. Did you bring along any jerk-off lotion?" Oh my God! So you went up and found her and whispered in her ear what it meant. And she went, "Aye!"
First thing I did after I heard I got into Vassar was I went to Brooks Brothers and I bought cutoffs. Bermuda shorts. Right.
And you never wore Bermuda shorts.
No, I thought they were unbecoming.
We used to wear those horrible Bermuda shorts. Did you wear those?
Oh yeah, sure.
They were awful. I came home in them. And people in the South didn't wear those things. I came home in them, and I was reminded of this yesterday. And my father took one look at me and he said, "Weezie," he said, "you look like an alpinist with rickets."
It was very strange. I had never seen a campus, and all these girls, and they wore Bermuda shorts, and I didn't have any, and I didn't have a cashmere sweater because this wasn't style in Paris.
Our attire, our Bermuda shorts, and the knee socks.
Knee socks, can you imagine? Anything worse on somebody with skinny legs and those knee socks and the knees sticking out? Oh.
We were all totally homogeneous.
We all thought the same, we all looked the same, we all wore our knee socks.
And came dinner time, how we then changed. Sweater with pearls, an accordion pleated skirt.
Posture pictures.
Oh yes, and you know some of that. What a scam that was. What a bunch of sheep we were. I can't imagine if my children put up for that. And I stood there and I remember I looked at that thing and said I had a low chest. I'll never forget it. Oh. And the other thing that I had was one of my shoulders was lower than the other, which was probably carrying books.
Times when they exposed the posture pictures.
Yeah.
To feel like you had been had.
Indignity. And then all of it was to prove this man's racist point of views. After it all came in the paper, it all got quickly hushed up. It all had a slightly unsavory Nazi-type agenda.
I remember this. Indeed. Why would we ever let anybody photograph us that way?
Well, remember all the rumors that they were going around Lehr University? There's always some rumor that the posture pictures had been discovered and some guy looking at them. There goes my chances.
I do hope they're all gone.